We begin with a whisper of forgotten ages, a gentle invitation to drift into the vastness of time itself, where the earliest traces of humanity, if they existed, have long since faded into silence. Imagine a world before memory, before written records, a time when the first stirrings of human thought might have echoed through forests, across rivers, and over mountains, leaving no mark stronger than footprints that the wind and rain slowly erased. Even as we sit in our present moment, cushioned by the familiarity of our cities and routines, we are but a fleeting note in a symphony that began long before us, a fleeting flicker in the endless continuum of Earth's history. In this quiet reflection, there is no urgency, no need to seek proof or certainty, only an openness to the possibility that humanity has walked this planet before in ways we cannot yet measure, in ways our imaginations can barely touch. Time stretches infinitely in this space of contemplation. Imagine centuries folding over centuries, layer upon layer of life rising and falling, civilizations building and crumbling, leaving whispers that the wind carries across forgotten plains. It is easy to forget, in our modern world, the incredible fragility of human endeavor. The first civilizations, whatever they were, may have been brilliant in ways we cannot perceive, full of ingenuity, art, and knowledge, yet utterly vulnerable to forces beyond their control. Perhaps they thrived for centuries or millennia, only to vanish like morning mist, leaving behind nothing more than faint echoes in the natural world, subtle distortions in the landscape, or myths carried in the minds of generations yet to come. As we move deeper into this meditation, consider the enormity of what lost truly means. It is not merely that monuments may crumble or texts may fade. It is that entire ways of being, entire philosophies, the very essence of daily life, could disappear without trace. What did people of this earliest civilization dream? What songs did they sing in the quiet hours before dawn? What mysteries did they ponder when gazing at the stars? These are questions that cannot be answered, yet the act of asking them opens a door to calm, reflective wonder, allowing us to inhabit a space where imagination and history intertwine in a slow, contemplative dance. Imagine standing in a field that has not been touched by modern hands. The wind moves through tall grasses, and in the gentle sway, you sense the memory of countless generations who may have walked this same ground. Perhaps the soil carries the weight of lives that no longer exist, layers upon layers of moments, choices, and experiences, all converging silently beneath your feet. There is a peculiar kind of peace in this thought, a serenity born from understanding that time itself is patient, that the earth remembers in ways that humans never can. The echoes of a forgotten civilization are not lost entirely, they exist in the rhythm of natural cycles, in the rise and fall of rivers, the migration of animals, the slow growth of forests, and the shifting of continents over eons. This meditation also invites a soft confrontation with impermanence. Every structure we build, every thought we record, every story we tell is, ultimately, a brief spark in the vast darkness of time. Yet there is beauty in this fleetingness. Knowing that the first civilization may have arisen and disappeared without leaving a clear mark reminds us that human existence, at its core, is delicate and precious. The calm recognition of this truth allows us to breathe slowly, to let the mind settle into the comfort of cosmic perspective, and to feel a quiet connection with those who might have lived, laughed, and loved long before we ever existed. As the mind drifts further, let us imagine the senses of these ancient people. What did they hear in the silence of a forest untouched by modern machines? What did they see in the night sky, where stars shone without city lights obscuring their brilliance? How did they measure time, mark seasons, or understand the cycles of birth, growth, and decay? In pondering these questions, we are drawn into a gentle awareness of continuity, a thread that links all human experience across time. Even if every physical artifact is gone, the rhythms of life, birth, death, the turning of seasons, the rise of sun and moon remain the same. In this realization, there is calm, an almost hypnotic sense of connection with the endless flow of existence. We can also reflect on the silence itself, the absence of records, the emptiness of archaeological traces, the voids left in the earth and in memory. These too are meaningful. They are invitations to slow down, to listen more carefully, to imagine more freely. In this silence, we discover a space for our own thoughts to expand, to wander without urgency, to explore the boundaries of what is known and what is possible. The first civilization, in its disappearance, teaches us about patience, about subtlety, about the quiet power of time to erase and yet preserve in ways beyond human comprehension. In this space of gentle reflection, the mind is invited to drift, to feel a calm awe at the vastness of history and the smallness of the self. There is no rush to find answers, no need to know the truth of what happened. The questions themselves, did humanity exist before and did it vanish? Become a lullaby, a soft rhythm that encourages relaxation and contemplative sleep. The imagination can roam freely, conjuring landscapes, cities, and minds long vanished, yet always returning to the serene constancy of the present moment. Finally, there is a sense of continuity and gentle hope. Even if civilizations rise and fall, even if knowledge is lost, life continues, and with it, the possibility of learning, of building, of dreaming. The Whisper of Forgotten Ages is not a story of despair but a story of subtle resilience, an eternal invitation to slow down, breathe, and contemplate the delicate beauty of existence. In this quiet meditation, we are soothed by the knowledge that our place in the vast narrative of time is both fragile and miraculous, fleeting and luminous, a single note in an endless symphony that has played long before we were here, and that will continue long after we are gone. Beneath our feet lies a silent archive, a record of countless lives and civilizations that may have come and gone long before we learned to write their stories. The earth itself holds a memory, layered in sediment, rock, and soil, each stratum a quiet testament to the passage of time. Walking across a field, a desert, or a riverbank, we traverse the remnants of ages we cannot name, footprints and structures long since swallowed by wind, rain, and slow decay. Each grain of sand, each pebble in the soil, may contain subtle traces of what once was, reminders of the delicate balance between creation and destruction. In this way, the ground beneath us becomes not merely a surface but a living, breathing repository of history, quietly waiting for those patient enough to notice. Consider the river delta, shaped over millennia by flowing water, the gentle erosion of stone, and the accumulation of sediment. Perhaps the first humans who lived nearby watched the same currents, marking seasons and floods, building shelters, and leaving artifacts that would dissolve into the soil. These traces, once part of daily life, now rest unseen beneath layers of earth, invisible to the casual observer, yet carrying a silent testimony of existence. There is a poetry in this invisibility, a calm meditation on the impermanence of human endeavor. What is lost to the soil is not gone entirely. It persists in quiet, subtle ways, shaping the landscape, nourishing plants, and influencing the very ground upon which we walk today. Every field, every hill, every buried valley contains the potential for discovery. Archaeologists often speak of stratigraphy, the study of these layers, but for our purposes, it is enough to imagine the stories they hold. Beneath a simple patch of earth may lie fragments of pottery, tools, or other remnants of a civilization that once thrived and vanished. Even without labels or timelines, these silent objects carry meaning. They are echoes of human life, gestures frozen in the enduring patience of the earth. To dwell on them is to engage in a quiet contemplation of continuity, to sense the subtle connection between ourselves and those who have gone before. The desert is another keeper of secrets. Sands shift slowly but inexorably, burying entire settlements beneath dunes that move with the wind. In such places, the landscape seems barren, yet it is teeming with hidden history. What once may have been a bustling city, filled with voices, laughter, and movement, is now concealed beneath an expanse of gold and silence. This contrast, the bustling life that once existed versus the serene stillness that now persists, is part of the gentle rhythm we are invited to follow in our reflection. It encourages the mind to slow, to linger on the quiet, and to find comfort in the natural cycles of creation and decay. Even the soil beneath forests holds this memory. The forest floor is rich with layers of decomposed leaves, twigs, and the detritus of countless lives. Beneath this organic quilt, Perhaps long-buried structures or tools of early civilizations lie waiting. Trees grow over these traces, their roots intertwining with the remains, yet life continues unabated, indifferent to human presence or absence. There is a meditation here on the resilience of life itself, how ecosystems persist, adapt, and flourish even when civilizations vanish. In recognizing this, we find a soothing rhythm, a reminder that the earth endures, quietly carrying the weight of both memory and loss. Coastal plains and oceanic shelves also whisper of what has been lost. Rising and falling seas have swallowed countless settlements, leaving only hints beneath layers of silt and sand. Here, water becomes both destroyer and preserver, erasing the visible while safeguarding fragments of what once existed. Ships, tools, and settlements now rest in silence beneath waves, their stories submerged in liquid darkness. The ocean, vast and patient, mirrors the calm rhythm of this meditation, inviting us to sink gently into reflection, to float on the slow tides of thought, and to appreciate the subtle persistence of memory even when all outward signs have vanished. Through all these landscapes, fields, deserts, forests, and seas, we begin to sense a pattern. Civilization, no matter how advanced or vibrant, leaves traces that are fragile, susceptible to erosion, weather, and time. And yet, these traces endure in ways subtle and poetic, woven into the very fabric of the planet. There is a quiet lesson in this persistence. Though our own lives may be fleeting, and though much may be lost, even the smallest mark of existence contributes to the slow unfolding story of the earth. In contemplating this, the mind finds calm, the heart softens, and the imagination is allowed to wander freely across the hidden corridors of history. In this space of quiet reflection, the act of walking, of feeling the earth beneath our feet, becomes a meditation. Every step connects us to the countless lives that have come before, each layer of soil beneath our soles a whisper of what once was. We do not need to know names or dates, we only need to feel the continuity, the subtle interweaving of life, loss, and memory. Here, in the patience of the earth and the quiet persistence of hidden traces, we find a sense of calm, a gentle immersion into the poetry of existence, and a soft invitation to rest, to drift, and to imagine the hidden stories beneath our feet. Time, in its vast and unfathomable expanse, stretches beyond the bounds of human perception. It is not measured by clocks, calendars, or the fleeting rhythm of our daily routines, but by the slow unfolding of geological processes, the rise and fall of mountains, the grinding movement of tectonic plates, and the erosion of stone under wind and rain. In this meditation, we begin to feel ourselves as small participants in a story that began long before our existence and will continue long after we are gone. Each moment we experience is a single note in a symphony that has been playing for eons, each breath a fleeting echo in a song whose melody we can barely comprehend. To dwell in this awareness is to enter a space of calm reflection, where the mind is invited to slow, to release urgency, and to feel the gentle rhythm of time itself. Consider the lifespan of the earth compared to that of a single human. A human life is brief, measured in decades, while the earth has existed for billions of years. Mountains rise and crumble, rivers carve valleys, and oceans shift in their courses, all without haste or hesitation. Civilizations, no matter how vibrant, are but fleeting sparks against this immensity. The first human civilizations, if they existed, were brief flickers in this vast continuum. Perhaps they thrived for centuries or even millennia, yet when seen against the sweep of geological time, their existence may be barely perceptible. There is a peculiar peace in this perspective, a soothing awareness that human struggles, achievements, and losses are part of a much larger rhythm that continues unperturbed. In contemplating these scales, we begin to sense the fragility and beauty of human life. Our histories, recorded or lost, are transient, yet they matter precisely because they exist within this infinite canvas. Each thought, each creation, each gesture carries meaning in the moment, even if time eventually erases its traces. The impermanence of civilization encourages us to slow down, to breathe, and to appreciate the ephemeral poetry of existence. There is comfort in knowing that our fleeting lives are not insignificant, but rather delicate threads woven into an endlessly unfolding tapestry. In this gentle meditation, the mind can drift, finding serenity in the awareness that time enfolds all things, and that every rise and fall, every beginning and end, is part of the same natural cadence. The mind is invited to wander further, to imagine the countless civilizations that may have risen and fallen long before recorded history began. These societies, now lost to memory, may have experienced the same joys, sorrows, and wonder that we feel today. Perhaps they looked up at the stars, pondered their place in the universe, and built communities full of knowledge and art. And yet, like footprints in sand, the traces of their existence may have been slowly erased by wind, water, and the inexorable march of time. To imagine them is to enter a space of gentle curiosity, a realm where the unknown becomes an invitation rather than a source of anxiety. The mind can rest here, oscillating between what might have been and the quiet comfort of the present moment. We also begin to notice the cycles that shape existence. Time is rarely linear in the grand scheme. It flows, ebbs, and folds in ways that exceed human comprehension. Civilizations may rise, flourish, and vanish, only for new ones to emerge, echoing patterns that have occurred countless times before. These cycles are not chaotic but carry a rhythm, a subtle harmony that invites the listener into a state of calm reflection. There is a soft meditation in observing how life adapts, persists, and reshapes itself, how loss and renewal coexist, and how every ending quietly becomes the beginning of something new. Even within the brevity of human life, the awareness of time's immensity offers solace. In the silence between moments, we can feel the heartbeat of the earth, the slow pulse of history, and the persistent continuity of existence. Mountains and rivers, forests and deserts, oceans and skies, all bear witness to the passage of time in ways we can sense but never fully measure. By tuning into this rhythm, we allow ourselves to slow, to sink into the comfort of perspective, and to understand that all human endeavors, no matter how temporary, are part of a broader, enduring flow. In this meditative awareness, the rise and fall of civilizations takes on a poetic quality. Each society is a stanza in a vast, ongoing poem, its words and verses often lost, but its echoes lingering in subtle ways. The first civilization, whether fully imagined or partially remembered, becomes a symbol of the delicate and transient nature of human existence. Its potential achievements, its losses, and even its disappearance are all part of a contemplative narrative that encourages reflection rather than conclusion, wonder rather than certainty. The mind is invited to float gently through these musings, finding calm in the vast continuum of time. Finally, there is a quiet recognition that in understanding the scale of time, we also reconnect with the present. Each breath, each heartbeat, each quiet moment becomes luminous with meaning, a reminder that though we are small, our awareness allows us to participate in the flow of existence. The vast immensity of time need not overwhelm. It can soothe, guide, and lull us into contemplative stillness. We are, for a moment, aligned with the rhythm of the cosmos, our consciousness gently attuned to the slow unfolding of history, life, and memory. In this space, the mind is free to rest, drift, and absorb the calming truth that time enfolds all things with patient grace. Myths and stories have always been humanity's way of reaching into the unknown, a bridge between memory and imagination, between what was and what could have been. They are gentle echoes of lives long vanished, whispers of civilizations we may never fully know. Across continents and cultures, certain motifs recur: the flood that reshapes the land, the golden age before decline, gods descending from the skies, and warnings of great catastrophe. Perhaps these are not merely tales for entertainment or moral instruction, but fragments of memory, coded in story and song, surviving long after the structures and records of a civilization have faded into dust. To consider this is to step softly into a world where imagination and history overlap, where the mind is invited to float in quiet contemplation of the possibilities that lie hidden in the past. Think of the flood myths that appear across distant lands, from Mesopotamia to the Americas. Could they be collective memories of real events, of rising waters that erased early settlements and changed the course of human history? Even if we cannot know for certain, the very act of wondering opens the mind to a subtle meditation on impermanence. Floods are sudden, overwhelming, and irreversible. They remind us of nature's power, the fragility of human endeavor, and the quiet humility required to contemplate the forces beyond our control. Listening to these myths in a calm state, we allow ourselves to drift through the emotional resonance they carry, feeling both the loss and the persistence of life, the balance between destruction and continuity. Golden ages, too, appear in many cultures, a time when humanity lived in harmony with the world, a period of enlightenment, abundance, and wonder. Perhaps these stories are not fantasies, but faint recollections of times when a civilization reached its peak before fading into obscurity. The idea of a world so perfect, so luminous, yet so fleeting, invites us into gentle reflection. We imagine a civilization that thrived with knowledge, creativity, and deep understanding of nature, only to vanish from the record, leaving behind whispers in the tales of later generations. In contemplating these golden ages, the mind relaxes into a sense of loss softened by beauty, a feeling both melancholic and comforting, like a memory half-remembered in a dream. Legends of gods descending or walking among humans may also contain echoes of early civilizations, interpreted through the lens of awe and imagination. Perhaps these stories arose as symbolic attempts to explain remarkable technology, architecture, or knowledge that exceeded contemporary understanding. Or perhaps they were metaphors, expressions of humanity's desire to reach beyond itself, to touch the divine, to connect with something larger than the self. In exploring these narratives slowly without needing definitive answers, we enter a space of meditative curiosity. The stories themselves become a rhythm, a soft current carrying the mind across time, inviting us to float in wonder without expectation or urgency. Warnings of catastrophe recur in myth as well, and they may be some of the most poignant echoes of all. Tales of civilizations destroyed by fire, ice, water, or celestial events serve as reminders of human vulnerability, the delicate balance between creation and annihilation. These narratives are not meant to terrify, they are meant to evoke reflection, a calm awareness of mortality on both individual and collective scales. Listening to these warnings in a gentle, contemplative state, we feel the quiet weight of history, the fragile persistence of life, and the subtle poetry in the rise and fall of all things. Each myth becomes a gentle teacher, guiding us through the rhythms of loss and survival, urging us to find serenity even amidst uncertainty. The universality of these stories is remarkable. Across oceans and continents, cultures separated by thousands of miles share similar narratives, suggesting either common human patterns of thought or perhaps fragments of a distant past remembered in dream and legend. This reflection encourages a deep, soothing curiosity about the possibility of early civilizations whose influence stretches across time and space, leaving imprints not in stone or metal, but in the very way humans think, imagine, and tell stories. The mind, in contemplating this, begins to relax, finding calm in the subtle connections between myth and memory, between story and history, between the known and the unknowable. Even in the absence of proof, myths serve as a meditative bridge. They allow us to imagine civilizations lost to time without fear or urgency, encouraging us to dwell in possibility rather than certainty. The narratives are soft guides, leading us through landscapes of imagination and history, reminding us that memory is not always tangible and that knowledge is often preserved in forms that speak to the heart rather than the intellect. In this space, the mind floats, carried by the rhythm of story and reflection, drifting toward a state of calm and quiet awe. Finally, there is a subtle beauty in the interplay between myth and speculation. By listening, imagining, and reflecting, we honor the lives and civilizations that may have existed long before us. We recognize that even if all traces of their structures, texts, or technologies have vanished, their memory persists in the human mind, woven into our shared consciousness through stories, dreams, and patterns repeated across generations. In this gentle meditation, there is no need to solve the mystery or arrive at certainty. The process of contemplating, imagining, and feeling the echoes of these lost civilizations becomes itself a source of peace, a soft lullaby for the mind, and a pathway into reflective wonder that carries the listener ever closer to the edge of sleep. The pyramids rise from the sands like quiet whispers of a world that once was, not as monuments to human dominance, but as fragments of thought, intention, and wonder reaching across time. They do not shout their presence. They exist patiently, inviting reflection, contemplation, and gentle awe. In their geometry and precision, we sense the work of minds deeply attuned to both the earth beneath their feet and the sky above. They seem less concerned with grandeur than with continuity, less focused on permanence than on resonance, carrying the traces of a civilization, or perhaps multiple civilizations, whose knowledge, ritual, and creativity extended far beyond what we can easily perceive today. To imagine the pyramids as a whisper is to step into a more intimate relationship with history. A whisper is soft, subtle, yet persistent. It travels through time, moving through layers of soil, stone, and memory, reaching only those who are willing to listen carefully, without urgency or expectation. The pyramids speak in this way. They do not demand understanding, they suggest it. Their lines, angles, and alignments are not arbitrary. They reflect knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and observation, yet this knowledge is expressed poetically, intertwined with spirituality, symbolism, and a deep sense of purpose. The message is not always clear, but its presence is undeniable. Someone, long ago, sought to leave a trace of thought and care, a structure that could endure both natural and human erosion. The whisper of the pyramids also reminds us of human patience and persistence. Constructing these enormous structures required generations, a passing down of knowledge, techniques, and rituals. Each stone placed with intention represents centuries of observation, experimentation, and refinement. The pyramids are the product not just of individual brilliance, but of communal dedication, a collaboration that spanned lifetimes and integrated countless experiences. In this sense, they speak of human continuity, the transmission of understanding and culture, and the quiet endurance of ideas that can outlast even the individuals who conceive them. There is also a profound sense of humility embedded in these structures. Standing in imagination before them, we perceive the vastness of time they have endured, the shifting sands, the winds, the sun, and the centuries of human curiosity that have brushed past their surfaces. The pyramids are reminders that human accomplishment is fragile and enduring at once. They encourage us to consider the larger arc of existence. Civilizations rise and fall, empires fade, yet intention, creativity, and insight can leave traces that survive far beyond immediate recognition. In this way, the pyramids bridge the ephemeral and the eternal, the fleeting and the timeless. As we reflect further, the pyramids may be seen not just as remnants of a particular civilization, but as fragments of a hidden world, a continuum of human endeavor that stretches beyond conventional history. Perhaps they are the visible portion of knowledge and achievement far older, far deeper, than surviving records indicate. They may connect to lost settlements, hidden cities, or submerged civilizations, echoing human ingenuity and curiosity across landscapes now buried or erased. In their stillness, they invite us to imagine the vastness of human potential and the possibilities of understanding that have been quietly preserved in stone, soil, and memory. The whisper extends also into the realm of the unseen and unknown. The pyramids align with stars, cardinal directions, and perhaps cycles of the sun and moon. They reflect an awareness of the cosmos and a desire to participate in a rhythm larger than human life. Their geometry mirrors principles found in nature, proportions, symmetry, and patterns that repeat in shells, plants, and celestial movements. They are bridges between the terrestrial and the cosmic, reminders that human curiosity has always sought connection with the larger universe, seeking meaning and harmony in both observation and imagination. Meditating on the pyramids as whispers allows us to contemplate what remains hidden beneath the surface of the earth and human history. They suggest that knowledge, culture, and creativity are not confined to what is visible or recorded. Just as the desert preserves memory, the oceans conceal civilizations, and the layers of the planet archive traces of existence, the pyramids serve as gateways to reflection on human continuity, potential, and mystery. They encourage a slow, deliberate engagement with the past, a willingness to dream alongside the echoes of those who came before, and a recognition that understanding often grows in quiet, patient moments. In their final resonance, the pyramids invite us to rest within the contemplation of human possibility. They are reminders that creation can endure, that ingenuity can transcend the immediate, and that even whispers can carry profound meaning. As night deepens and consciousness drifts toward sleep, they become companions in reflection, guiding the mind gently through curiosity, imagination, and awe. They are not monuments to be conquered intellectually, but whispers to be felt, subtle transmissions of endurance, intelligence, and beauty that move softly across time and space. In this quiet, meditative space, we can imagine the pyramids not as solitary achievements, but as part of a vast, hidden network of human endeavor. They are symbols of continuity, of patience, and of the interplay between knowledge, creativity, and the natural world. As we surrender to the calm rhythm of night, we can carry their whisper with us, letting it drift through the mind like sand in the wind, a gentle reminder that the past, though hidden and fragmented, is alive in the present, waiting patiently to be heard, imagined, and dreamt upon. Imagine a civilization so ancient that no records remain, no inscriptions carved into stone, no texts preserved on fragile papyrus. Its structures may have existed, monumental and intricate, yet time has swallowed them, leaving nothing more than subtle impressions on the land. We call them the silent architects, for their works, if they existed, were created not for fame or permanence, but as expressions of human creativity, ingenuity, and a desire to leave something lasting. And yet, the earth, patient and impartial, slowly reclaims all that humans build. Mountains grow, rivers shift, deserts advance, and forests spread over ruins. Even the grandest cities, the most elaborate monuments, may vanish completely, leaving only traces detectable to those who listen closely enough to the whispers of the planet. Consider how fragile such creations truly are. Stone may endure for centuries, wood for decades, but even these eventually succumb to the slow, unrelenting force of nature. Earthquakes crumble walls, winds erode facades, water seeps into foundations and washes away memory. Civilization, no matter how brilliant, is a temporary imprint, a fleeting arrangement of matter and intention within the immense canvas of geological time. Yet in contemplating this fragility, there is a gentle beauty. The ephemeral nature of human creation reminds us that life itself is delicate, and that even impermanence carries significance. The act of imagining these lost structures becomes a meditation, a slow journey across time and imagination, allowing the mind to rest in the rhythm of rise and fall. What might these silent architects have built? Perhaps cities of stone with streets lined in symmetry, libraries filled with knowledge now lost, temples dedicated to wisdom or art. Perhaps pyramids rose in deserts long forgotten, or vast observatories tracked the motion of the stars. Without proof, we can only imagine, and in imagination there is freedom. The mind drifts gently, wandering through possibilities, feeling the calm curiosity that emerges when certainty is absent. To envision these structures is to feel a quiet connection across time, a sense that the human impulse to create, to leave a mark, has persisted for millennia, even when all evidence has been erased. The silence left behind is profound. It is not an absence to be feared but a presence to be felt. There is a contemplative stillness in imagining cities that once thrived yet now are swallowed by wind, sand, or forest. The void invites reflection on human ambition, on the persistence of memory, and on the mysterious ways the earth preserves or erases traces of existence. Each imagined structure becomes a symbol of creativity and fragility, a testament to what may have been and a reminder that the echoes of human endeavor often survive not in physical form, but in the imagination of those who ponder the past. Even without artifacts or ruins, we can sense the lives behind the architecture. The silent architects were not merely builders, they were thinkers, dreamers, and storytellers. Perhaps they debated, laughed, and wondered at the world around them, creating not only physical structures but also communities, philosophies, and art. Though these lives are lost, We honor them through imagination, through a quiet reflection on the ephemeral beauty of human existence. In this reflection, the mind softens, letting go of the desire for proof or certainty, and resting in the gentle awareness of connection across vast spans of time. The contrast between creation and erasure is striking. While humans may strive for permanence, nature moves with patience, slowly reclaiming what was built. This contrast becomes a meditation on impermanence, on acceptance, and on the rhythms that govern life and time. There is a quiet poetry in understanding that all human achievement is temporary, yet each effort contributes to the unfolding story of the earth. Each structure, each thought, each creation, whether remembered or lost, becomes part of a delicate rhythm, a pulse that continues beneath the surface, guiding the mind into reflection and rest. In considering the silent architects, we are also invited to contemplate our own place in history. The civilizations we know, the structures we build, and the knowledge we accumulate are not guaranteed permanence. Yet this does not diminish their value, it enhances it, for it reminds us to appreciate the fleeting beauty of creation. Each moment of thought, each act of creativity, each gesture of human ingenuity carries meaning precisely because it is fragile and ephemeral. In this quiet meditation, the mind is soothed, the heart calms, and we drift toward a serene understanding of the impermanent yet beautiful nature of all human endeavor. Finally, the silent architects become more than a thought experiment. They are a doorway into reflection, imagination, and a meditative state of awareness. By imagining what they might have built, who they might have been, and how their lives intersected with the rhythms of nature, we allow ourselves to slow, to breathe, and to connect with the subtle pulse of the past. The silence that remains is not emptiness but an invitation, a gentle space for the mind to wander, to feel awe, and to rest in contemplation of what may have existed long before us. In this calm, reflective space, we drift ever closer to understanding the delicate, fleeting, and beautiful interplay between human ambition and the vast, patient expanse of time.
Even in the absence of physical structures or written records, knowledge itself leaves traces, subtle and enduring, embedded in patterns, artifacts, and the human imagination. Shadows of knowledge, they may be called, because what remains of early civilizations is often incomplete, fragmentary, or hidden entirely. A tool fashioned from stone or metal can reveal not just its purpose but the ingenuity of the mind that created it, a silent testament to the capacity for innovation and understanding. A fragment of pottery, carefully shaped and painted, hints at aesthetic sensibilities, cultural values, and daily life, carrying a quiet beauty across millennia. Even when most of a civilization is erased, its knowledge may linger in these shadows, waiting for patient minds to notice and contemplate, to feel its resonance in the imagination and in the quiet spaces of thought. We often underestimate how fragile knowledge can be. Books decay, clay tablets crumble, oral traditions fade, and with them, centuries of accumulated wisdom vanish. Yet the patterns of thought, the discoveries, and the observations of the past can persist in ways less tangible but equally profound. They may survive in stories, myths, or gestures repeated across generations, echoing like faint signals in the vast corridors of human memory. These shadows of knowledge remind us that the essence of learning is not solely in what can be physically preserved, but in the way insight is transmitted, internalized, and reflected upon. Even when civilizations disappear, the echoes of what they understood may shape the future in subtle, unexpected ways, leaving a legacy that survives in thought rather than in stone. Imagine, for a moment, a civilization whose knowledge exceeded our own in certain ways. Perhaps they had mastered mathematics, astronomy, or engineering in ways now lost to history. Perhaps they understood the rhythms of climate, the cycles of the stars, or the properties of materials with a precision we can only speculate upon. Though we cannot reconstruct their discoveries, the very act of imagining them invites a meditative curiosity, a calm exploration of what is possible in the human mind. It allows us to float gently across time, feeling the weight of knowledge both present and absent, and to sense the delicate continuity of thought that connects all humanity across epochs. History is filled with examples of lost knowledge. Libraries have burned, scrolls have decayed, Inventions have been forgotten, and yet fragments survive in unexpected ways. A method rediscovered, a pattern recognized, or a story retold can reveal glimpses of brilliance that once seemed lost forever. This reminds us of the delicate interplay between memory, chance, and preservation. The shadows of knowledge are elusive, yet they offer a quiet reassurance that understanding, once glimpsed, has the power to persist, even through immense spans of time and absence. The mind, in contemplating these remnants, begins to relax, attuning itself to the slow rhythm of discovery and loss, and finding calm in the delicate balance between presence and absence. There is also a poetic beauty in the very incompleteness of what survives. Knowledge that is partial, fragmented, or hidden invites the imagination to fill in the gaps. It encourages reflection on the ways humans have always sought to understand their world, to question, to invent, and to create. Each fragment of knowledge becomes a meditation, a soft thread connecting us to minds long vanished, and a gentle reminder that curiosity itself is timeless. Even when civilizations vanish, the impulse to learn, to explore, and to understand endures, flowing through generations like a quiet river beneath the surface of history. In contemplating these shadows, we also become aware of the fragility of our own knowledge. How much of what we understand today will survive tomorrow? How much will be erased by time, by circumstance, or by forces beyond our control? There is no need for fear in this reflection. Rather, there is a serene acceptance, a calm appreciation of the impermanent yet profound nature of understanding. Each discovery, each thought, and each insight is precious, not merely for its permanence, but for its moment of existence, its capacity to illuminate and inspire in the here and now. Ultimately, the shadows of knowledge encourage us to dwell in quiet reflection, to listen carefully to what remains, and to honor the subtle imprints left by minds that came before. They remind us that learning is both fragile and enduring, delicate yet persistent, fleeting yet resonant across time. In this meditation, we are invited to rest, to drift, and to contemplate the intangible beauty of understanding, feeling a calm connection to the continuity of human thought. The echoes of knowledge, though faint and often hidden, guide us gently into a space of reflective wonder, a space where imagination and history intertwine, and where the mind can relax, float, and sink into contemplative stillness.
Even in the absence of physical structures or written records, knowledge itself leaves traces, subtle and enduring, embedded in patterns, artifacts, and the human imagination. Shadows of knowledge, they may be called, because what remains of early civilizations is often incomplete, fragmentary, or hidden entirely. A tool fashioned from stone or metal can reveal not just its purpose but the ingenuity of the mind that created it, a silent testament to the capacity for innovation and understanding. A fragment of pottery, carefully shaped and painted, hints at aesthetic sensibilities, cultural values, and daily life, carrying a quiet beauty across millennia. Even when most of a civilization is erased, its knowledge may linger in these shadows, waiting for patient minds to notice and contemplate, to feel its resonance in the imagination and in the quiet spaces of thought. We often underestimate how fragile knowledge can be. Books decay, clay tablets crumble, oral traditions fade, and with them, centuries of accumulated wisdom vanish. Yet the patterns of thought, the discoveries, and the observations of the past can persist in ways less tangible but equally profound. They may survive in stories, myths, or gestures repeated across generations, echoing like faint signals in the vast corridors of human memory. These shadows of knowledge remind us that the essence of learning is not solely in what can be physically preserved, but in the way insight is transmitted, internalized, and reflected upon. Even when civilizations disappear, the echoes of what they understood may shape the future in subtle, unexpected ways, leaving a legacy that survives in thought rather than in stone. Imagine, for a moment, a civilization whose knowledge exceeded our own in certain ways. Perhaps they had mastered mathematics, astronomy, or engineering in ways now lost to history. Perhaps they understood the rhythms of climate, the cycles of the stars, or the properties of materials with a precision we can only speculate upon. Though we cannot reconstruct their discoveries, the very act of imagining them invites a meditative curiosity, a calm exploration of what is possible in the human mind. It allows us to float gently across time, feeling the weight of knowledge both present and absent, and to sense the delicate continuity of thought that connects all humanity across epochs. History is filled with examples of lost knowledge. Libraries have burned, scrolls have decayed, inventions have been forgotten, and yet fragments survive in unexpected ways. A method rediscovered, a pattern recognized, or a story retold can reveal glimpses of brilliance that once seemed lost forever. This reminds us of the delicate interplay between memory, chance, and preservation. The shadows of knowledge are elusive, yet they offer a quiet reassurance that understanding once glimpsed has the power to persist even through immense spans of time and absence. The mind, in contemplating these remnants, begins to relax, attuning itself to the slow rhythm of discovery and loss, and finding calm in the delicate balance between presence and absence. There is also a poetic beauty in the very incompleteness of what survives. Knowledge that is partial, fragmented, or hidden invites the imagination to fill in the gaps. It encourages reflection on the ways humans have always sought to understand their world, to question, to invent, and to create. Each fragment of knowledge becomes a meditation, a soft thread connecting us to minds long vanished, and a gentle reminder that curiosity itself is timeless. Even when civilizations vanish, the impulse to learn, to explore, and to understand endures, flowing through generations like a quiet river beneath the surface of history. In contemplating these shadows, we also become aware of the fragility of our own knowledge. How much of what we understand today will survive tomorrow? How much will be erased by time, by circumstance, or by forces beyond our control? There is no need for fear in this reflection. Rather, there is a serene acceptance, a calm appreciation of the impermanent yet profound nature of understanding. Each discovery, each thought, and each insight is precious, not merely for its permanence, but for its moment of existence, its capacity to illuminate and inspire in the here and now. Ultimately, the shadows of knowledge encourage us to dwell in quiet reflection, to listen carefully to what remains, and to honor the subtle imprints left by minds that came before. They remind us that learning is both fragile and enduring, delicate yet persistent, fleeting yet resonant across time. In this meditation, we are invited to rest, to drift, and to contemplate the intangible beauty of understanding, feeling a calm connection to the continuity of human thought. The echoes of knowledge, though faint and often hidden, guide us gently into a space of reflective wonder, a space where imagination and history intertwine, and where the mind can relax, float, and sink into contemplative stillness. Fire and ice, floods and winds, the slow grinding of glaciers and the sudden fury of volcanic eruptions, nature has always shaped the fate of civilizations. The earth is both nurturing and indifferent, a patient witness to the rise and fall of human endeavor. To imagine the first civilization is to imagine its fragility in the face of forces far greater than itself. Perhaps it thrived in harmony with its surroundings for centuries, a society of ingenuity, learning, and wonder. And yet, the forces of nature may have intervened, subtly at first, then suddenly, leaving nothing behind but traces buried in soil, ice, or rock. In contemplating these possibilities, the mind finds calm in recognizing that fragility is part of life, and that impermanence is woven into the fabric of existence itself. Floods may have come as gentle seasonal swells, then gradually as devastating deluges, reshaping landscapes and erasing settlements. Rivers, once steady, may have surged beyond their banks, eroding foundations, sweeping away homes, and leaving only scattered remnants in their wake. Perhaps the first civilization built near such rivers, drawn to their sustenance, only to discover their unpredictability. In imagining this, we feel the quiet tension between human aspiration and natural unpredictability, the soft hum of understanding that even the grandest human plans are subject to the patient, indifferent rhythm of the earth. There is no fear in this reflection, only awe and a gentle acceptance of the natural order. Volcanic eruptions offer another meditation on impermanence. mountains that slept for millennia may have suddenly awakened, spewing ash and fire across vast regions, darkening skies, and altering climates. Entire cities could have been buried under layers of volcanic sediment, their memory preserved only in subtle distortions of the landscape. The mind drifts in contemplation, imagining the stillness after the eruption, the silence that follows devastation, and the slow, patient recovery of life in its aftermath. There is a calm beauty in understanding the cyclical power of destruction and regeneration, a rhythm mirrored in the flow of our own lives, in the rises and falls we experience in thought, emotion, and action. Ice, too, may have played a role in shaping the destiny of early civilizations. Glaciers creep slowly, inexorably, their weight pressing down on the land, reshaping coastlines and valleys, advancing and retreating over centuries. Perhaps settlements once existed near these frozen expanses, thriving in a delicate balance with the environment, only to be overtaken by shifting ice or retreating waters. The image of a civilization slowly disappearing beneath the patience of glaciers is not frightening, but meditative, a quiet testament to the immense, slow forces that govern the planet. The mind is invited to breathe with this rhythm, to feel the patient unfolding of time, and to recognize the delicate interplay between human effort and natural endurance. Even more subtle forces may have influenced survival, gradual climate changes, prolonged droughts, or slight shifts in rainfall patterns. Over decades or centuries, these small variations can accumulate, weakening societies, limiting resources, and creating vulnerabilities that leave a civilization susceptible to collapse. The thought invites a gentle reflection on the delicate balance required for survival, the interconnectedness of life and environment, and the silent patience of nature that quietly shapes history. There is calm in imagining these forces acting over long stretches of time, unseen and unfelt in the moment, yet ultimately shaping the course of human endeavor in profound ways. Fire, both literal and metaphorical, also embodies fragility. Forest fires may have swept across regions, consuming settlements, forests, and knowledge. The use of fire by early humans, once a tool and a source of warmth, may have inadvertently contributed to destruction when uncontrolled. In this contemplation, fire becomes a dual symbol. It is both creation and annihilation, warmth and destruction, a force that illuminates and a force that consumes. The mind is encouraged to settle into the rhythm of these contrasts, feeling a meditative awareness of the balance inherent in all forces of nature and the delicate coexistence of life and death. In the quiet of reflection, we sense that no civilization, no matter how sophisticated, is immune to these forces. Yet there is also resilience in life itself. Ecosystems recover, rivers carve new paths, forests regrow, and the land continues its patient rhythm. Even the traces of a lost civilization may endure in subtle ways. A changed river course, a fertile plain once cultivated, or patterns in the soil that hint at past human activity. There is a soft poetry in this persistence, a reminder that while destruction is inevitable, continuity endures in the patient unfolding of natural processes. Finally, fire and ice become more than forces of destruction, they are meditative guides. In contemplating their power and subtlety, the mind enters a state of calm reflection, imagining both the fragility of human endeavor and the persistence of life. The first civilization, whether erased by sudden catastrophe or patient, incremental change, becomes a symbol of the delicate balance between ambition and impermanence. The contrast between life and extinction, creation and destruction, invites a gentle awareness, a serene understanding that everything arises, persists, and eventually fades in the quiet, patient rhythm of the earth. In this meditation, the mind drifts, resting in the awareness of both the vastness of natural forces and the quiet beauty of life's resilience, preparing for deeper reflection and rest. Even as civilizations rise and fall under the patient rhythm of nature, there remains a quieter, subtler force shaping human existence: culture, belief, and ritual. Long before written language, before monumental structures and codified laws, humans sought to understand the world through stories, symbols, and ceremonies. These expressions may have been small: a circle of stones marking a sacred place, a carefully painted cave wall, the repetition of a song or chant, but they carried profound meaning. They were attempts to connect with forces larger than themselves, to comprehend the cycles of life and death, growth and decay, and to anchor memory in forms that could survive the erosion of time. Even without knowing the specifics, we can sense that culture itself is a form of architecture, a construction of meaning and continuity that bridges generations and civilizations. Rituals, for example, provide rhythm and structure to human life. They may have marked the passage of seasons, celebrated the harvest, or honored ancestors long gone. Perhaps the first civilization developed complex ceremonies that aligned with the stars, tracking celestial patterns with care and intention. Though no trace of these rituals may survive, the impulse behind them endures in human societies today. In reflecting on this, we are invited to imagine the quiet repetition of actions performed over centuries, each gesture a connection between the present and the distant past. There is a gentle calm in understanding that human beings have always sought meaning, and that even small acts of remembrance can resonate through time. Belief systems, too, carry the echoes of lost civilizations. Stories of gods, spirits, or guiding forces may have originated as ways to explain natural phenomena, to preserve moral and social order, or to maintain hope in times of crisis. Perhaps these beliefs were deeply intertwined with daily life, influencing decisions, celebrations, and interactions. Even when societies vanish, fragments of their worldview persist, scattered across myths, symbols, and customs that survive in distant cultures. In contemplating these remnants, the mind is lulled into a state of gentle reflection, tracing patterns across time, and feeling the subtle continuity of human thought. The past and present merge in a quiet meditation on memory, imagination, and the invisible threads that connect all people across millennia. Consider the quiet power of symbolism. A carved figure, a painted hand, or a circle of stones may appear simple, yet each carries layers of meaning. These symbols may have represented deities, celestial bodies, or abstract concepts like life, death, and renewal. Even when the civilization that created them is gone, their resonance remains. They remind us that human beings have always sought to make sense of existence through abstraction, through patterns, through careful attention to form and repetition. In imagining these symbolic worlds, we feel a soft awe at the depth of thought and intention that may have existed, a gentle awareness that meaning itself can persist even when the physical world changes. Language and communication, too, leave echoes even in their absence. Oral traditions may have transmitted knowledge, stories, and guidance across generations, preserving ideas long after structures and artifacts were lost. A lullaby, a chant, or a repeated phrase could carry the essence of a civilization's understanding, morality, or wisdom, floating across time like a whisper in the wind. In reflecting on these possibilities, the mind is invited to enter a meditative state, listening with inner ears, imagining the voices of countless generations, and feeling a quiet connection to the continuity of thought and expression. Even seemingly ordinary human activities may carry profound weight. Daily routines, methods of farming, hunting practices, and crafting techniques are all expressions of accumulated knowledge and culture. They are the unseen framework of civilization, often overlooked, yet crucial for survival and continuity. Perhaps the first civilization refined such practices to a degree now unimaginable, creating harmony between people and the land. Though we may never know the details, imagining these routines provides a soft rhythm, a gentle cadence that soothes the mind, allowing it to float through time and consider life in its most essential forms. Ultimately, culture, ritual, and symbolism are the threads that persist long after monuments crumble and cities vanish. They are the quiet memory of humanity itself, the invisible architecture that preserves the essence of thought, imagination, and connection. By contemplating these enduring patterns, we feel a sense of calm, as if we are resting within a continuum of human experience that stretches far beyond the present moment. The first civilization, whatever its shape or form, lives on in these subtle echoes, guiding us toward reflection, wonder, and a gentle awareness of the invisible forces that shape our existence. In this quiet space of contemplation, the mind is invited to drift freely, tracing the connections between past and present, imagining rituals, symbols, and practices, and sensing the continuity of human thought across the vast expanse of time. There is no need for certainty, no need to solve the mysteries of what once existed. Instead, there is only calm observation, gentle curiosity, and the soothing awareness that humanity, in its earliest forms, sought understanding, meaning, and beauty, just as we do now. The echoes of culture and ritual become a lullaby for the mind, guiding it gently toward rest, reflection, and the soft embrace of imaginative meditation. Memory, though fragile and fleeting, can survive in the smallest of traces. Beyond monuments and texts, beyond tools and artifacts, the first civilization may have left subtler imprints, impressions on the soil, echoes in oral traditions, and even influences in the rhythms of human behavior that persist today. These remnants are often invisible to the casual observer, yet they carry the essence of human existence, the quiet fingerprints of lives that once thrived. In contemplating these traces, the mind is invited to drift slowly, following the delicate paths that connect past and present, imagination and memory, absence and continuity. Imagine the first civilization's impact on the landscape itself. Perhaps irrigation channels once carved rivers into fertile fields, or stone terraces shaped mountainsides to hold crops. Even if these structures have eroded over centuries, their echoes remain in subtle changes to the land. Soil may retain unusual richness, patterns may hint at past cultivation, and the contours of the earth may whisper of intentional design. By focusing on these whispers, we enter a meditative state, sensing the quiet persistence of human activity and the enduring relationship between life and land. The mind softens, attuned to the calm rhythm of slow observation, reflection, and wonder. Memory can also persist in culture. Songs, dances, and stories may carry fragments of knowledge across generations, transmitted through repetition, adaptation, and imagination. Perhaps the first civilization passed down ideas about astronomy, mathematics, or natural phenomena in coded forms, embedded in rituals or symbolic gestures. Even if the original meaning has shifted or faded, these echoes can still resonate in human thought, shaping perception and understanding. The subtle persistence of culture becomes a source of meditative reflection, inviting us to feel continuity across millennia, to sense that knowledge and creativity, though fragile, are never entirely lost. Even human behavior may bear the imprint of civilizations long gone. Patterns of settlement, trade, or migration can reveal how societies adapted to environmental challenges, shared resources, and formed communities. Perhaps certain practices, seemingly timeless, originated with the first civilization, passed down in subtle, often unnoticed ways. In considering these possibilities, the mind drifts into contemplative calm, tracing the threads of continuity that connect past and present. Every gesture, every habit, every repetition of action becomes a soft echo of human resilience and ingenuity, a reminder that life endures even when memory falters. Natural memory, too, carries the imprints of human activity. Forests, rivers, and coastlines subtly reflect the shaping hand of early civilizations. A grove of trees may indicate past cultivation, a river bend may have been altered for transportation or irrigation, and sediment layers may preserve the faint chemical traces of human presence. These natural archives are patient and slow, revealing their stories only to those willing to observe attentively, to listen to the rhythm of the earth. By imagining these quiet imprints, the mind enters a meditative state, harmonizing with the gentle persistence of nature and the enduring, though subtle, traces of human endeavor. Memory also survives in the imagination itself. When we envision lost civilizations, when we wonder about cities swallowed by sand, forests, or water, we become active participants in the continuation of history. The act of imagining, of reflecting, of constructing possible narratives from fragments and intuition is a form of preservation. In this meditation, the mind softens, floating freely between what is known and what is conjectured, resting in the gentle interplay between curiosity and reverie. Through imagination, we honor the lives, achievements, and struggles of those who came before, keeping their essence alive in thought and contemplation. Even absence carries meaning. The lack of evidence for a civilization, the void left in the archaeological record, speaks to the impermanence and fragility of human endeavor. Yet within that absence lies a quiet invitation to reflect, to imagine, and to rest in the awareness that existence does not require permanence to matter. The mind learns to perceive subtle signs, to sense patterns and echoes, and to find calm in the continuity of life, even when history itself seems silent. In this space, reflection and wonder coexist, and the imagination becomes a gentle guide through the soft corridors of time. Finally, memory, in all its forms, teaches patience. The first civilization, whether real or partially imagined, becomes a lens through which we understand impermanence, resilience, and connection. Its traces, both visible and invisible, invite meditation, encouraging the mind to slow, to float, and to rest in the awareness of continuity across millennia. By contemplating subtle imprints in land, culture, behavior, and imagination, we enter a serene state, where history and possibility merge into a gentle rhythm, a lullaby for the mind, and a path toward reflective rest. Across the vast tapestry of human cultures, scattered across continents and separated by thousands of years, there exists a quiet resonance that feels strangely unified. Stories of floods, fires, great darkness, and sudden changes in the sky appear in places where no contact was ever known, carried through oral traditions, carved into stone, whispered in rituals, and etched into the imaginations of civilizations that believed themselves alone. These recurring tales do not feel like coincidences. Instead, they seem like distant reflections of something humanity once endured, remembered not in the language of science, but in the language of survival. Memory, when stretched across too many generations, transforms into symbolism, but beneath the symbols there may still lie a faint echo of truth. Ancient minds recorded what they could, using myth as their vessel, encoding fear and awe into stories that could outlive even the stones that held their empires together. In many cultures, the memory of a great flood is not told as a simple story of water, but as a moment when the world itself was washed clean. These myths may feel exaggerated to modern ears, yet scientists know that sea levels have risen and fallen dramatically, and that coastlines have shifted with terrifying speed. Entire regions that once were dry land now sleep beneath the ocean, and human settlements that thrived during the last ice age disappeared when glaciers melted and the sea advanced like a quiet, unstoppable tide. People living through such an event might not have had the words for climate cycles or glacial melt. They would have simply witnessed the world vanishing beneath water, and the memory of that trauma would have demanded to be carried forward. And so it was, generation after generation, until it crystallized into the myths we know today. In other places, the memory of fire dominates. Stories of skies darkened by ash, of seasons that failed, of sudden cold that followed a blinding brightness, are found in cultures far from volcanic belts. Scientists speak today of volcanic winters, of eruptions so vast they changed global weather patterns, cooling the earth and collapsing entire food chains. To a society without advanced tools or written records, such an event would have been overwhelming, inexplicable, and deeply symbolic. Fire was not simply fire, it was a divine retribution, a cosmic warning, or a rebirth of the world through destruction. The human mind interpreted catastrophe in the only way it could, through narrative, through the poetry of fear and resilience. Some traditions speak of days when the sun did not rise, or nights when the moon refused to brighten. These stories appear in indigenous memories, ancient chronicles, and early astronomical records. Modern science suggests that solar storms, meteor dust clouds, or distant volcanic eruptions could dim the sun for weeks or months. Such events, while temporary on a geological scale, would have felt eternal to the people experiencing them. Darkness is not merely an absence of light, it is an invitation for the mind to wander into deeper fears, to search for meaning in the shadows. Over time, the story of darkness becomes more than meteorology, it becomes a tale about the fragility of life and the mystery of the cosmos. Many of these remembered catastrophes have historical parallels. Some align with known geological events, others do not. Some likely exaggerate a real phenomenon, while others may be metaphors for something subtler, a century of famine compressed into a single symbolic moment, or a slow decline depicted as a sudden collapse. Yet what makes these stories remarkable is not their accuracy, but their persistence. Thousands of years after the last witnesses died, the memories remained alive, drifting forward through culture and language like fragile seeds carried by wind. In contemplating whether an earlier civilization might have existed, these collective memories offer a gentle reminder: humanity has lived through cycles of struggle long before our written records began. If a complex society had flourished and then faltered tens of thousands of years ago, the physical evidence might have eroded beyond recognition, but the emotional shock could have survived in mythic form. Myths are containers of deep time, holding truths that are not literal but experiential. The collapse of a civilization, if witnessed even by a few small groups of survivors, might echo across countless generations in the form of stories about gods abandoning the world, about ages of gold replaced by ages of sorrow, or about the world resetting itself after human hubris reached too far. These stories, when viewed not as folklore but as cultural memory, create a sense of continuity between the ancient world and the modern one. They remind us that humans have always tried to understand the unpredictable rhythms of the planet, that we have always searched for meaning in disaster, and that we have always turned to storytelling as a way to preserve lessons too important to lose. Even today, our own fears about climate change, global instability, or technological collapse often take mythic forms in books, films, and collective imagination. In this way, we are no different from the ancestors who carved their warnings into stone or whispered them into the ears of their children. The possibility that these memories might reflect events experienced by unknown civilizations does not need to be sensational. It can simply be contemplative. It can invite us to consider that humanity's story may be longer, more cyclical, and more vulnerable than we typically assume. It can encourage us to listen closely, not just to the earth beneath our feet, but to the echoes carried within our cultures, the faint whispers of people who lived through darkness and water and fire, and who tried, in the poetic language available to them, to pass on what they learned. Whether or not a forgotten civilization once stood before us, these shared memories offer a peaceful reminder of our connection to deep time and to one another through the stories that have never entirely faded from human consciousness. Imagine a civilization emerging quietly on the edge of memory, its first sparks of creativity barely perceptible against the vastness of time. Perhaps it began as small clusters of people, guided by curiosity, necessity, or a sudden understanding of the land around them. They discovered patterns in the stars, ways to cultivate food, methods to shape stone, clay, and metal. These early innovations may have seemed miraculous in their moment, yet fragile, vulnerable to the whims of climate, disease, or conflict. Progress, in this light, is never guaranteed. It is a delicate flame, threatened by the smallest shift in circumstance. And so, even the most brilliant achievements of an unknown early civilization could have vanished almost as soon as they appeared, leaving only faint whispers embedded in myth or trace elements scattered in the earth. This imagined rise is not a story of grand pyramids or vast empires, though it could have been that. It may have been subtle: the first domesticated plants, a network of trade between distant groups, an early understanding of mathematics or astronomy that seemed like magic to their contemporaries. The true beauty lies in the fact that such knowledge is perishable. Stone erodes, clay dissolves, and the memory of oral traditions fades with each passing generation. A civilization can flourish and leave almost no tangible mark, yet the human experience remains, as if the world itself preserves the echo of intelligence in ways science can only guess at. Our own curiosity about this past may arise precisely because so little evidence remains, because the silence of history draws the mind toward possibility. Consider the fragility of societal continuity. One generation may master skills that the next cannot preserve. One environmental catastrophe can erase decades of innovation. One shift in population can fragment a culture beyond repair. Even if the civilization we imagine was advanced, it might have lacked the mechanisms to survive in perpetuity. Written records, if they existed, may have been lost to fire or water, knowledge may have been passed verbally, vulnerable to alteration or total disappearance. Progress is not merely the accumulation of discoveries, it is the delicate weaving of communities, traditions, and institutions, all of which are subject to the slow erosion of time. A single misstep, a single unrecorded disaster, could unravel everything, leaving only hints buried deep in the earth. Yet even in this hypothetical rise, there is a kind of quiet majesty. To imagine a civilization so ancient, so fleeting, is to marvel at the resilience of the human spirit. It reminds us that intelligence is not unique to any one era, that our capacity to observe, experiment, and create may have existed long before our own recorded history. In the shadows of forgotten cities, in the layers of soil beneath modern landscapes, the traces of early ingenuity may linger. Tools, remnants of dwellings, or subtle changes in soil composition may be all that remains, tiny signatures of a civilization's ambitions, its triumphs, and its ultimate vulnerability. This perspective encourages a different kind of reflection. Rather than focusing solely on the loss, it invites a meditation on the temporality of human endeavor. Civilizations are not eternal monuments. They are living organisms in miniature, capable of incredible growth yet susceptible to sudden collapse. The rise of an early society, even if entirely hypothetical, demonstrates the universality of human curiosity and the fleeting nature of achievement. It suggests that greatness is not measured by permanence, but by the intensity of its existence in its own moment, and by the subtle ways it can ripple forward into the future, even if imperceptibly. There is also a gentle lesson in humility. To imagine a rise before our own recorded history is to confront the limits of knowledge. It reminds us that our understanding of human progress is partial, that countless stories may have been erased, and that the universe is vast and patient, indifferent to our need for permanence. The rise of this hypothetical civilization is both ordinary and extraordinary, ordinary in its pursuit of sustenance, security, and social cohesion, extraordinary in the fleeting brilliance of its creations and the echoes it may have left behind. These echoes, whether preserved in geology, mythology, or genetic traces, offer a quiet dialogue between the past and the present, a conversation across millennia that humbles and soothes the mind. Finally, this contemplation serves as a bridge toward empathy and reflection. The rise of a civilization that no longer exists encourages us to consider the fragility of our own societies, to acknowledge the tenuous nature of human continuity, and to appreciate the preciousness of knowledge and culture. It invites a sense of calm wonder, even in the face of loss, even when entire chapters vanish from history. The act of rising, of striving, of imagining a better understanding of the world, is a form of quiet immortality. Time may erase monuments, but the essence of creativity, curiosity, and adaptation endures in ways that ripple through generations, whispering that every rise, no matter how brief, matters in the unfolding story of life on Earth. Civilizations do not always end with a sudden crash or dramatic collapse. Often, their endings are quiet, subtle, almost imperceptible, like the fading of a song long after its last note. Populations may dwindle slowly over decades, families migrate in search of fertile land, resources may deplete, and traditions that once bound communities together gradually dissolve. The end of a society is rarely a single event. It is a series of small, cumulative occurrences, each one quietly eroding the structures that held people together. In imagining a civilization lost to time, it is worth contemplating these gentle fades, these invisible collapses that leave almost no trace in the geological record, yet profoundly shape the trajectory of life that follows. The silence of an ending can be as powerful as the noise of disaster. Environmental change is often at the heart of these quiet conclusions. Shifts in rainfall, soil fertility, or temperature may slowly render once thriving lands inhospitable. Crops fail in subtle ways, rivers shift course, and resources that supported entire communities vanish over generations. The people living through these slow transformations may not even perceive a crisis until it has nearly completed itself. Adaptation may become impossible when change is relentless and gradual, and societies can diminish without dramatic scenes, leaving only faint impressions on the land, traces too delicate for archaeologists to uncover centuries later. In this way, nature participates in the quiet conclusion, reshaping landscapes, reclaiming buildings, and erasing footprints as gently and persistently as time itself. Cultural loss often accompanies demographic decline. Knowledge once carefully preserved may be forgotten, rituals may be abandoned, and artistic expressions may fade with the people who practice them. Oral histories, songs, and stories pass from generation to generation, but when communities fragment or disperse, these threads unravel. In a lost civilization, this quiet fading of culture may have been more decisive than any natural disaster. Without observers, without successors to carry the memory forward, the richness of a society can disappear almost entirely, leaving only subtle signs. Unusual soil compositions, isolated artifacts, or genetic markers that hint at a once complex human presence. Civilization, in this light, is not only what is built or invented, it is what is remembered, practiced, and shared. When memory itself fades, so too does the civilization. Conflict, too, can end civilizations gently rather than violently. Neighboring groups may absorb smaller communities, or internal divisions may weaken social cohesion over generations. Wars, when not documented or memorialized, leave little evidence. Political fragmentation can occur without dramatic battles, and leadership structures may slowly dissolve. Even the most resilient societies can succumb to internal pressures over time, their collapse marked not by a single catastrophe but by a gradual unraveling of networks, relationships, and systems of knowledge. The end, in this sense, is a quiet transformation rather than a spectacle, a return to simpler forms of human existence that survive only in small pockets. Sometimes, the quiet end of a civilization can be almost invisible to future generations. Cities may sink into forest or desert, roads may vanish beneath shifting sands, and monumental structures may erode beyond recognition. Where archaeologists see ruins, the people of the future might see nothing but empty land. The most profound lessons of a civilization's quiet ending are embedded not in grand monuments but in the subtle ways the earth remembers. The arrangement of stones, the traces of irrigation, the layers of sediment that suggest sustained human activity. Even when the story is almost entirely lost, there is evidence of a human heartbeat that once pulsed with care, ingenuity, and hope. There is also a philosophical beauty in this quiet ending. It reminds us that the measure of a civilization is not always in its duration or the fame of its achievements, but in the lived experiences of those who existed within it. The rise and fall, the subtle fading, the gradual dissolution, all are part of the natural rhythm of life. In contemplating a lost civilization, we are invited to reflect on the impermanence of our own societies, to recognize that continuity is fragile, and to appreciate the ephemeral nature of human endeavor. There is serenity in acknowledging that endings can be soft, that collapse does not always arrive with violence, and that even in silence, meaning endures. Finally, imagining the gentle endings of civilizations can bring a sense of perspective and calm. It allows us to release the need for dramatic narratives, to rest in the knowledge that loss does not always equate to failure. Like the quiet ebb of a river that reshapes the land over centuries, the gradual disappearance of a civilization is part of the natural flow of history. The rise and fall of societies, repeated endlessly across deep time, invite contemplation and wonder. They remind us that human life, while fleeting, is part of a much larger story, one in which endings are not catastrophic finales but transitions, delicate and inevitable, returning energy, memory, and spirit to the endless cycle of existence. In this quiet reflection, we can find solace, understanding, and a gentle readiness to sleep, carried by the rhythm of time itself. There is a quiet idea that lingers around the edges of ancient architecture. There are lessons hidden in ways that are subtle, profound, and often overlooked, but expressing a worldview encoded in shapes or inscribed in stone and relationships. They are embedded in the patterns of human survival today, in the cycles of rise and decline, in the traces of ingenuity that persist even after entire cultures have disappeared. The more we sense that their work emerged from a kind of intuitive imagination and a willingness to listen to the quiet voices of the past. But in observation, even when the physical evidence has faded, the rhythms of history whisper their guidance. In this way, offering the pyramids feel like blueprints of a forgotten science, and the delicate balance between human ambition and the forces of nature. The practical lessons remind us that survival is not solely about strength. This ancient science begins with geometry and the humility to recognize limits beyond our control. Before humans wrote in ink, such lesson is the importance of adaptability, shadows on stone, civilizations that endured the arcs of the sun, even temporarily, through simple tools and because they were able to respond. They discovered patterns that repeated everywhere, patterns in triangles, adjusted their agriculture, developed new social structures, symmetry and modified their technologies to meet shifting circumstances. They saw the world not as these adaptations but as a tapestry woven with mathematical threads. In this sense, the traces of lost societies are not merely clarity, but gentle proportions, echo ratios found in nature, attentiveness, their slopes aligned with cardinal directions, and responsiveness, and their positions life over generational markers. The past, though we even when fragmented and about their intentions, becomes a teacher, inviting us to reflect on our own ability to adapt to environmental, social, and technological transformations in a rapidly changing world, but philosophical. Another lesson emerges in the fragility and interconnectedness of human role in ancient sciences. In societies that many early cultures believed that sound shaped reality, stored and in that specific communities, the hidden and dependent on universe. Oral transmission, the same ratios that form musical intervals appear in the geometry of knowledge itself around the world, sometimes whether forever. Intentional or coincidental. Underscores a profound this overlap truth. Hints at human understanding is to not create absolute. Structures that resonate within delicate webs of connection. The pyramids, dependent with on their shared chambers and long corridors and continuity, may have captured sound the in a way that amplified whether real or imagination, reminds us that the act of remembering, though we cannot know exactly how ancient knowledge is a sacred responsibility. The very fact that these spaces respond to harmonious but awareness of that impermanence allows us to cultivate resilience and to safeguard the seeds of learning. Early engineers and to honor the continuity of human understanding of materials. The stories of disappearance also teach humility. Its grain, even the most density and intelligent, through generations of societies can vanish. Leaving minimal traces cracked under pressure. This is a reminder that without mortar is fleeting. They studied the cooling of desert nights and that the swelling heat of the day. According to forces this was far greater than any single civilization. There is serenity in accepting this truth. Over despair, these observations accumulated human life, practical wisdom that allowed ancient builders to achieve feats modern engineers still find the universe does not preserve their knowledge or punish. May not have been written down in formal manuals. In this perspective, history's lost civilizations and traditions of countless natural occurrences, elegant in their impermanence, as another dimension of mirror to our own lives and the early civilizations we inhabit today. Symbols were not abstractions, also reside in patterns of human behavior. A square could represent the earth, we see cycles of innovation and exploitation, emerging cooperation and conflict. These symbols guided architecture in ways that blended function with meaning. Themes. The pyramid between ambition and sustainability, the interplay becomes more than human creativity. It becomes a statement about humanity rising towards something higher, warning whether a star and the enduring strength of adaptation when it is embraced. The alignment civilizations with the cardinal points grounded in the physical world, reflection on these geometries suggests a connection to something to consider both the fragility and resilience. The pyramid becomes an intersection of worlds, inspiring a sense of wonder at the complexity of life and the intricate networks that sustain societies over these ideas. There is also a poetic dimension to material science and symbolism to the heart as much as the older intellectual lineage. The ephemeral nature of human knowledge may have flowed like a river of impermanence and narrow. Just as the most delicate flowers bloom briefly, sometimes so too can human achievements shine. The end of the Ice Age brought dramatic environmental shifts that may have erased earlier forms of structured not only wisdom. For what persists, floods but could have washed away moments of creativity, climate changes could have scattered communities that define the human oral traditions once the vanished civilizations could have flickered out in their tribes migrated, remind us to value the present. To recognize may have been fragments, luminous contributions that each generation of understanding, and to find contentment in participation within the ongoing story of humanity. The pyramids even stand if its chapters are temporary of this memory. Ultimately, their endurance hidden in the dust of time and their precision suggests connection to the environment. They look like the culmination of ideas refined over centuries. They encourage reflection without urgency, whether this lineage began in small communities along ancient rivers or in cultures now buried under oceans or deserts. Quiet truths, its essence appears in the universal human impulse to align with nature's order, the delicate balances that sustain our societies, to stepped pyramids and to embrace the beauty of mystery from the astronomical towers of India to the rock-hewn complexes of Ethiopia. We can rest, humanity has that even in disappearing structures that life offers a shared intuitive echoes of civilizations long gone continue to interconnected, inviting reflection, and alive with inspiring calm. As we look at the pyramids now, we can imagine their builders not as isolated engineers but as inheritors of ancient knowledge, practicing a form of science that merged observation with spirituality, precision with aesthetics, and practicality with cosmic curiosity. Their work did not require modern technology to achieve brilliance. It required attention, patience, memory, and a worldview that placed humanity within a larger cosmic narrative. These blueprints of forgotten science remind us that knowledge is not always linear, and that human understanding may rise and fall like civilizations themselves. What survives in stone may only be the visible portion of a vast intellectual iceberg, the tip of a lineage so long, so deep, and so intertwined with the rhythms of nature that we can only glimpse its true form by listening quietly to what the stones still want to say. As we contemplate the possibility of civilizations that came before us, a profound question arises. Are we the first to walk this path, or merely the latest in an unbroken chain that stretches across eons? Time, when measured in human lifespans, feels linear and certain, but when viewed against the vastness of geological and cosmic cycles, it becomes fluid, layered, and infinitely mysterious. Entire chapters of life, entire civilizations, could have emerged and faded while our own species was still learning to stand upright, to gather food, to understand the world around it. The thought is humbling, almost disorienting, yet it invites a gentle curiosity rather than fear. To ponder the first or the last is not to seek answers, but to rest in the magnitude of existence itself. The sense of perspective that comes from imagining the long arc of human experience encourages both wonder and reflection. Our present moment, so intense and immediate in its challenges, seems small against the sweep of millennia. Environmental changes, natural catastrophes, and slow cycles of planetary transformation have repeated countless times, shaping life, erasing traces, and allowing new forms to emerge. If civilizations before us rose and fell in silence, their stories are interwoven with the earth itself, in the sediment, in the fossil record, in subtle shifts of soil and climate. These traces are reminders that humanity is both fragile and resilient, a single note in a symphony that has been playing for far longer than we can comprehend. The question of whether we are the first or the last also encourages contemplation of responsibility. To live in the present is to inherit the cumulative consequences of countless generations, whether we can perceive them or not. Our actions ripple forward, affecting ecosystems, climate, and the continuity of knowledge. Imagining the rise and fall of civilizations before us brings into focus the delicate balance of stewardship, the awareness that survival and progress depend not only on ingenuity but also on harmony with the forces that govern the planet. There is both awe and solace in recognizing that the choices we make are part of an ongoing dialogue with deep time. This reflection also nurtures a sense of connection across generations, even those we will never meet. If humanity has experienced cycles before, then we are participants in a story that extends beyond our own lives, beyond our recorded history, beyond the boundaries of memory. Each invention, each act of care, each quiet observation of the natural world is part of a continuum. The potential existence of civilizations long vanished illustrates that the achievements and failures of humans are rarely isolated. They are threads woven into the larger tapestry of life. In this view, our own time is both precious and transient, a brief, shimmering moment in a much longer, ongoing composition. There is also a meditative quality to considering our place in this sequence. The uncertainty of whether we are the first, the last, or somewhere in between allows the mind to rest in ambiguity, free from the demands of certainty or proof. We can imagine past societies that lived and disappeared without judgment, accepting that loss is natural and that existence is both temporary and recurring. This gentle perspective softens the weight of ambition and failure, emphasizing instead the beauty of participation, of being present, of experiencing and observing. To dwell in this awareness is to align with the rhythm of time itself, feeling both the fragility and the resilience inherent in life. The philosophical possibilities are expansive. Perhaps civilizations rise in hidden valleys, beneath shifting glaciers, or along coasts now submerged, and perhaps they leave traces too subtle for us to discern. Perhaps their struggles mirror our own, and perhaps we can learn from the faint echoes of their triumphs and failures. Even if no direct connection exists, the exercise of imagining these predecessors allows us to cultivate humility, curiosity, and reverence for the scale of existence. In doing so, we begin to understand that the human story is never solely about conquest, permanence, or dominance, but about adaptation, reflection, and the quiet striving to find meaning in a vast and ever-changing universe. Finally, the question of being the first or the last becomes an invitation to peace. It is a gentle reminder that time flows independently of human desire, that civilizations are moments within an infinite continuum, and that our awareness of this truth can cultivate calm and contemplation. We are small, yet part of something immeasurably grand. We are temporary, yet our consciousness allows us to witness, imagine, and reflect upon the immense arc of history. In this space, uncertainty becomes serenity, contemplation becomes wonder, and the mind, untethered from the immediacy of survival or knowledge, drifts naturally toward sleep. The universe has carried life before, and it will continue to carry life forward, whether we are the first to wonder or the latest to witness. In this, there is comfort, awe, and the quiet satisfaction of being present in a story that stretches far beyond ourselves. The answers to the mysteries of forgotten civilizations may not lie in the fragments we unearth today, but in the patient unfolding of time itself. Perhaps future generations will uncover hints buried deep beneath oceans, hidden within shifting sands, or locked in layers of rock and sediment that have yet to reveal their secrets. Perhaps they will find tools, structures, or traces of ingenuity that speak softly across millennia, illuminating chapters of human history we can barely imagine. Until that time, the past remains an open landscape of speculation, wonder, and quiet reflection. It is a space that invites the mind to wander without urgency, to dwell in questions rather than demands for certainty, and to experience the subtle beauty of what is unknown. There is a profound serenity in accepting that some mysteries may never be fully resolved. The universe does not rush to reveal its secrets, and humanity's understanding is always partial, limited by the scope of perception, technology, and imagination. Yet in this incompleteness lies a kind of comfort. We are participants in an ongoing story, not mere observers or judges of what has occurred. The past, with its vanished civilizations and unanswered questions, becomes a canvas on which curiosity can gently roam. By imagining what may have existed before our recorded history, we cultivate a deeper sense of connection to the vast continuum of life, a recognition that every discovery, every fragment, every whisper of evidence is part of a much larger dialogue between time, nature, and consciousness. Future discoveries, when they arrive, will not only illuminate the past, they will also reflect back on us, revealing the ways we interpret, imagine, and value knowledge. The act of searching for lost civilizations is as much about the present as it is about what has been forgotten. Each hypothesis, each carefully considered theory, each scientific investigation carries within it a mirror of our own curiosity, resilience, and humility. By acknowledging that the past may hold stories we cannot yet perceive, we allow ourselves to dwell in the spaciousness of uncertainty, appreciating the mystery rather than attempting to conquer it. The questions themselves become the meditation, the journey itself a quiet bridge between mind and cosmos. There is also a sense of continuity in this reflection. Civilizations may rise and fall, vanish and be forgotten, yet life endures. The earth remembers in subtle ways, in the soil, in the shifting currents of rivers, in the growth rings of trees, in the layers of ice that silently archive environmental histories. These records, patiently maintained by nature, carry the memory of what came before, awaiting those who are prepared to listen. Even without human witnesses, the echoes of past existence remain, embedded in the planet itself, patiently waiting for understanding to emerge. This perspective fosters a calm awe, a recognition that we are both observers and participants in a world that carries stories far older and larger than ourselves. Contemplating future discoveries also invites a gentle mindfulness of our place in history. Just as civilizations may have vanished long ago, so too will the traces of our own era fade with time. Satellites will decay, plastics will erode, cities will crumble, and knowledge may survive only in fragments. Yet even in this impermanence, there is a quiet beauty. Human curiosity, ingenuity, and the search for meaning are enduring forces capable of shaping understanding far beyond the lifetime of any single generation. By envisioning how the past may be uncovered in the future, we are reminded that our actions, our inquiries, and our reflections are part of a continuum, a delicate thread woven into the ever-expanding fabric of time. In imagining civilizations lost and yet to be discovered, the mind is encouraged to rest in wonder rather than worry, to move from questions to reflection, from curiosity to serenity. The unknown becomes a companion, not a threat. The vastness of time becomes a lullaby, its infinite stretches a gentle cadence that carries consciousness toward contemplation and ease. Even as we consider the possibility that humanity has risen before and that much has been forgotten, we are reassured by the rhythm of life itself, the enduring cycles of growth, change, and renewal that the planet has always maintained. There is a softness in this perspective, a quiet alignment with the patience of time, the persistence of nature, and the eternal capacity of the human mind to imagine, to wonder, and to rest. Ultimately, the story of civilizations lost, and of those waiting to be discovered, ends not with answers, but with a sense of harmony, reflection, and calm anticipation. The mysteries of the past, the fragments yet to be found, and the questions that may never be fully resolved all become part of a larger meditation on existence. By sitting with these ideas, by allowing the imagination to move freely across deep time, the mind enters a state of quiet receptivity. Here, we are invited to rest, to drift, and to experience the gentle peace of knowing that the universe continues to carry life, memory, and possibility forward. The echoes of the past, the whispers of what has yet to be revealed, and the infinite patience of time itself lull the listener into a space of wonder, reflection, and ultimately, sleep.